like you can take this in many different directions. But then when you come in, you wrap a story. As a copywriter, you build tension with love. Like you're like, because if I just gave the word right away, the most important word, by the way, the most important word is predictability. Predicting revenue, predicting profit, predicting product success before you build it, predicting your hires, prediction, being able to predict. And because if you could predict a product success before you start, then it's a very, very powerful word. And software is one of the most predictable sources of revenue online. And that's why all these entrepreneurs are moving to software. Then I sold a software course.
Listening to the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast, where we break down the financial principles that rich advertisers are deploying today to turn advertising into profit and get tons of traffic to their websites without killing their cash. These advertisers, agencies, affiliates, brands are responsible for managing over $1 billion a year in ad spend. You'll hear about what's working for them today, their rich ads, and we'll roast their epic failures and crappy ads on the internet with poor ads. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. This is your host, Zach Johnson. I'm with the one and only Dylan Carpenter. You excited, Dylan, for today's guest?
Hell to the yeah. Let's do it, man.
Hell to the yeah. I love it. Today's guest is he's one of the weirdest, most free spirit marketers out there. But the reason why I wanted to have him on the show is I think he's got an amazing background and a blend in music, as well as in an authoring a book, but also I think most known for his how many SaaS companies this guy has helped get off the ground. He's probably one of the best guys I know when it comes to going from 0 to 1 with as little as cash as possible, and as easily and quickly as possible as well. Something I just absolutely suck at. So I admire today's guest, but he's the co-founder of the foundation. He's the creator of the Start From Zero, and author of the Start From Zero book and podcast. And I think you got a couple other SaaS businesses under there as well. And he's done over 8 figures in sales online. And I don't think I could talk him up even more. But he's also become a pretty good friend. And we get to have chats every week remotely. He's also he's a pretty mellow dad as well. So Dane Maxwell, man, welcome to the show.
Yeah, you said being a father was a good thing for me because I used to be too rough around the edges for you. Dude. Well, I'm gonna bring the rough parts back, bro.
They're bringing them back on this podcast. Yeah, dude, your lady has really done amazing things for you. I feel like we can have like a real conversation, and it's gonna go places. But that's cool, man. Well, tell everybody what you're up to these days. For those of you that our audience is mainly agencies and advertisers. They might not be like SaaS or like, startup entrepreneurs that you're mostly known around in those circles. But yeah, give everybody up to speed.
Well, I'll tell you what I do, and I also want to mention it's more important is how I'm doing it, of course. Because, you could say, Rockefeller, how'd Rockefeller get rich? He got rich in oil. That's not how he got rich. There was a lot of people in oil that never got rich in oil. Rockefeller got rich because of how he went about it. And if you look at how he went about it, it's mind-blowing. It's like, holy crap, the stuff that he did. The how is so much more fascinating than the what. So, I could tell you the 3 whats I'm doing, but the how is way, way cooler. And the whats are pretty damn cool, too, because I'm pursuing my highest passion in pretty much all facilities in business. And so I'm making my dream virtual reality video game, and it's freaking awesome. And then I'm building 2 SaaS businesses, which are all centered around really deeply troubling problems that people experience, that when they find the SaaS platform, their nervous system will kind of open and be like, thank God, this exists. But the how I'm going about it was just so much joy and so connected to like a deeper purpose and a deeper sense of meaning with it all. And that's all real. So it's all really exciting. And then I've got a mentoring group, a group of 150 entrepreneurs that I mentor all the time, and that's a really fun group. If anybody's interested in that, we do have a couple spots open in the 150 right now. But yeah, that's the.
What do you call that group, by the way? Is that just gonna be like life support group, or like what is that called? I feel like
Well,
I should probably pay you money for this group. Given our
well, I would pay money to be a part of the group, you know. Um, but the group itself is it's called Starters. But Starters is a philosophy. It's a belief system that you can install within your psyche that allows you to live as a surrendered entrepreneur. So, when customers ask you for things and you're like, oh, God, don't ask me for that, customer. And you're like, oh, fuck, don't do that. You like surrender past that. And then you give that customer the thing they're asking for. And then your bank account shows the results of that. But you don't get rich in entrepreneurship quickly until you surrender. And when you surrender to what people are asking for, you surrender to what people really want. And that process of surrender is very difficult because, it's like, I'm mentoring a student right now. He generated 45 grand in sales for a furniture liquidator through Facebook ads, 28 to 1 conversion, 28 to 1 ROI. And then the next month he did a 7 to 1 ROI, 7 to 1 ROI. And the guy quit. Yeah, I didn't like this. And I'm
Wow.
like, and so that's triggering, right? Because you're like, what in the mother of all Moses are you thinking? 7 to 1 ROI. And I bet agency owners are like, oh, okay, I'll take 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5, 7, 28 to 1. And so I was like, well, so first you go punch a few pillows, right? You get angry, you're like, what the heck? Oh, the guy wants you to feed him pizza in bed. Okay, that's what he wants you to do. You made him pizza. He's like, no, can you bring it over and feed it to me while I'm in bed? And so um, I said, so after you process the anger, you then get curious. And surrendered entrepreneur is very curious. First, of course, you get triggered. You're like, God damn it. Why is the person asking for this? And then you surrender and you say, okay, well, curious, what ROI would you need to want to keep doing this? Is 7 to 1's not good enough? What is your good enough number? And then you actually get curious. You say, okay, so tell me about that. And then do you have any idea what industry averages are? Can you tell me how much money you have in the bank right now? Because that could be multiplied times 7 next month. Like,
Oh my God.
but there's a lot of anger because you generate all these guys like, oh, I got to call these leads. I don't want to do this, these leads. And I'm like, well, he's telling you what he wants. He wants customers on a silver platter. So you have a price plan. Well, we have a price plan for leads, but we also have if you don't want to do this majority of the work, we also have a price and the whole system and a methodology that will handle leads for you. It's just a greater price because we're getting you closer to a result. So you could choose this if you want. You don't have to leave. We just didn't talk about adding that. So, when agencies get that dreaded, like, oh, I have to deal with these leads, and the agency's like, well, God, okay, so you want pizza in bed, and then you listen and you surrender and you say, okay, you really do want this, and you get over your crap, and that takes a while. And I got a buddy of mine, he's approaching 10 grand a day online within the info product space, in the relationship space. And when you ask him how he did it, well, I taught him quite a bit of stuff that I think really helped him. But he said I finally just surrendered, because he's like, so ladies, what do you want to know for course wise? And they would say, and he's like, no, you shouldn't want that. No, you shouldn't want that. And finally, he gave them what they wanted, and he just sells off the racks every day. So Starters is a philosophy of recognizing the ego, surrendering, listening, and then building something from that surrendered space. So like the people ask, they're like, how do you get to the top of the mountain? Like, well, I don't climb mountains. I walk to valleys with buckets of water, and I pour the bucket of water down the valley. And then wherever that water goes, I follow along the stream and build my cities and villages along the stream. But that's a way of life. Living, that's a way of life. So I'm not like, God, getting to the top of that mountain. But the fucking water's heavy. You got to carry it to the valley. You got to find the valley first place, and then you got to pour it down and then what? I mean, it's different. It's work, but it's different work. But I tell you what, it's a whole heck of a lot better than trying to be some genius creative that creates something that like everybody just loves, and now we're significant in the world because we came up with this idea that everybody appreciates. And the same comes with ads, good ads and rich ads and poor ads, as you'd say. Because when I did songwriting, as much as you want every song to be a hit, you just got to write a lot of songs, and some hit and some don't. And the ones you think hit, you record. The ones that are easy to sing end up, it's really weird. It's really weird. There's like a 3-phase process in songwriting. So like you write a song, you're like, God, this song's awesome. I feel so great about it. Then you get into record it and you're like, this isn't really going very well during the recording. Then there's songs you hate that you're writing, but you like somehow you're eating it out. Then you go in the studio, you're like, God, this is a lot better when I'm singing it. And like 5 to 1, you write 5 songs to maybe have one that's worth listening to. So do you want to have the patience of writing 5 songs? That's why you want to love what you're doing with songwriting. But I think the ads too, you guys know that you got to write 10 ads to find your unicorn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I also feel like there's so many golden nuggets there that you just dropped, Dan. I want to highlight and like rewind and play the back for a couple people, because one, you're an amazing copywriter, and I think you just gave like every agency that's listening to this podcast a great headline, which is, how much is in your bank account? Do you want 7x more next month? That's like, if your whole value prop is ROAS,
Wait,
that's
what was the headline?
How much do you have in your bank account?
Yeah, how much is in your bank account, and do you want 7x more next month?
Yes.
So good.
And that came from like picturing myself on the phone with a human.
Yeah. The other thing I want to highlight here is the process of surrendering. This is something that I've been learning from you in the last couple of weeks, because like in our first, we were catching up a few weeks ago, and I was like, hey Dan, I got to do all this stuff. And you're like, cool, man, why don't you just take like a breather for a hot minute? Like, let's mellow out. And you basically was teaching me this process of like getting centered first, taking a breather, relaxing. What is joy? What is like the most fulfilling? And then what is my marketing strategy from there?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a difficult place for me to do before, just kind of like meditating out for a minute. And then what proceeded to happen the very next week was personally a really big breakthrough for us with AdCard. Was I finally just shut up for a minute about like how excited I was about AdCard, and it was great. Like, people were excited about it, but there was also people that like weren't excited about it. They're like, I got my Amex, like, cool. And then there was conversations that were like, hey, could you just like put my logo on the card? And I'm like, but, 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 but like, is that all you want? And I spent like a week kind of like overcomplicating it for a second, and then kind of came back, had another conversation with Dane. We like chilled out for a little session, and then like the next week, I just was like, oh, we have this new offer. It's called, a co-brandable ad card, and it's for agencies that want to put their logos on shit. And like, just shut up, right? Like, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Like, like, I don't care about anything else. And so this was like not an offer that we had pre catching up with you, Dan, like a few weeks ago. So if anything, I'm just like giving you, a glowing review here of like your process that I finally surrendered to after years of knowing so many people that have gone through your stuff. I don't think I've ever been like a student or like gone through anything there as much as I think we've just been friends. and so anyways,
up around the edges, bro.
Yeah, it's it's cool. So what I want to dive into, as we talk about like this rich ad segment is.
And I guess I just want to say real quick, like,
yeah, go ahead.
People wonder how Sam Ovens blew up, and I mentored him.
Yeah.
And like, he came to me at 22 and he couldn't even afford. So he borrowed his girlfriend's credit card to pay for mentorship. And he's one of the few students. He's super bright. Like, he even helped innovate the program while I was teaching him. He's super smart. So I just got lucky enough to mentor him. And I just he deeply installed everything I said. I've even got him on video, and I should play the video sometime, but he said, I've downloaded your brain. He actually said in Sam fashion, I stole your mind.
In Sam fashion. Oh, there's so many layers behind that onion right there.
And he's like, I stole your mind, and I'm not going to give it back, and I'm going to supercharge it.
That's awesome, man. You're like, I'm weirded out right now, but also happy for you.
Well, it's neither here nor there. It's like everyone does what they want with what I show them. But say, like, just in terms of the results that are possible with Sam, He looked at what the problem was, and people needed fast cash. And like a lot of people hear that, they're like, I need fast cash. They're like, yeah, whatever, get out of here. And Sam heard that and he's like, oh, you need fast cash. Okay, well, we'll just teach you consulting because that's fast cash. Like he surrendered and listened and he applied 100% of the stuff. And like I tell him a book to read, and he'd not only read that book, but he'd read all the recommendations at the end of the book. He'd highlight his favorite parts. He'd type up the highlights. He'd print out the highlights. He'd reread the highlights until all the patterns were installed. The process for how Sam came to be is much different than, oh, what he just does consulting. But I guess it's just I don't often really talk about him that much. But he's so successful now that it gives me so much credibility to be like, yeah, I taught that kid a few things, and now I could learn from him.
Yeah, it's an epic case study. Oh man.
And a lot of my students are actually more successful than me. Like I've got quite a few students that are leaders of their different respective industries. And it's really cool. I've been thinking about it. Like I wouldn't say I'm like particularly like strictly religious, but I really do admire Jesus for like what he stood for and things. And he's quoted in like the Bible. He has a quote, a Bible verse that says, "Greater things than me you will do." And I'm thinking about this. I'm like, that is such a badass thing to say. Because there are parts of me that's like, I'm the best. Everybody, I'm the best. It's me that's the best. Nobody else could be the best. Like there's a part of my mind that's thinking this. And I think everybody's thinking this in some regard. Maybe not. Maybe people are just fully healed and they're just in their full humble self. But like Jesus comes along and he's already like, it was reported that you could feel Jesus's aura from 2 miles away. Like if Jesus was around, like you could feel like that's how much peace was in that guy's system. And whether you believe he lived or not, like so those that do believe he lived, in like there's these things, but like that's how powerful he was. And he was also like, yeah, greater things than me you will do. I was like, I just so admire that. So I see that in a lot of my students. They're doing much, quote, greater things than I am in their own respective fields. Like I'm not number one in any field right now. And I kind of like the anonymity, to be honest. So,
I mean,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also nice not like to be put in a box, right? Like, because then you have to like reinvent yourself when you learn something new. And I can understand that. Well, let's break down like this process of how you think somebody should go about creating a rich ad campaign, right? And we're not going to get through all of them, but I think if you just touch on like a couple that we got to dive into, and then I would love to flip that and really kind of dive into this poor ad piece where it's kind of like, hey, well, here's some things like not to do.
I got it. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to
go. Go.
So you want to use your unconscious to your advantage. And so if your unconscious is in a state of anxiety or stress, or you're like subtly trying to prove yourself in some way, your mind will be like a heat-seeking missile for like ideas that seem good but are actually relatively mediocre to the genius that could come through if your mind was like really aligned. And for a lot of folks that are in the business world, we run on such a state of like internal anxiety, but it's so normalized that to slow down is like, but if you can stay in that for like 5 minutes, your brain, like 5 minutes usually, you're like, whoa. And then you kind of get to this really still place. And from that place, you start using your unconscious for really good things. And so you start asking your unconscious, like, how can I write something that's never been seen before? You know, how can I put together a string of sentences that just rivets and rocks people in their place? And then there's no clinging, there's no grasping. It's just kind of like, how can I do something that's never been seen before? And so we were thinking about this, and we were writing it, and we wrote a headline that like kind of went viral. And then like marketers would swipe it for other industries. But it came about because I was in a discussion with a partner I had at the time, Andy Drish, who's a great partner. And we were talking back and forth, and it was right at the point where your brain's like, fuck this, I'm done. And then you stay a little longer. And then the headline kind of comes. But the unconscious missile is, how can I create something that's never been seen before? And it's not to validate your own significance. It's not like, oh yeah, look, I did something. No, it's to capture attention so you can love people in a way they haven't been loved before. So they feel home when they found you. And in that place of home, you can carry them to a life that they have kind of like forgotten in their mind, but secretly wish existed. And I think business is ultimately about loving people. And when you love people, that's when you listen to them and you actually surrender. Because a refusal to listen and a refusal to surrender is a refusal to love, and so you're like, crap, right? You're like, oh God. So if you sit the person that you're writing a headline towards and you listen to them and you love them and you're like, what, the thing they've been asking for this is all the time. But I see this headline everywhere, but everybody's talking about this, but I don't want to be like this person over here. I've got a student in the starters program. And he's like, well, I've been trying to do all these things, but everybody keeps asking me for this thing that I've got working over here. And I'm like, well, what's the thing you got working over here? He's like, well, I kind of devised a thing where I can get 100% return in the stock market every 9 months. Okay. What's the problem there? He's like, well, it just sounds so gimmicky and like all this crap. Like, it just doesn't sound true. I'm like, okay, great. How to get 100% returns in the stock market every 9 months. I know this might sound gimmicky, and to me it actually does. So I've hesitated to run this headline for a really long time. But the truth is, it's been happening year after year, over and over for me and my friends and family. And here are the screenshots. Now, I almost didn't put this out in the world because I just didn't want to be laughed at. But it is truly this remarkable. And if you give me a chance to show you, I'll show you how you could do the same too. And now you've got a whole, like, you're like, man, and that's all written from love. You're like, you're asking them to believe this thing, and then you're just speaking with honesty, like you're going right to the cut. So in terms of the headline that we did that got shared and ripped off, and you could still use, many you guys could all go use this, but you don't want to use it without love, because if your intention isn't love, you'll actually cut the amount of profit you can make drastically. Because if your intention is subtly in any way, how do we manipulate attention to get this, this, or this? When you love people, you'll actually attract the customers that want to be there. And you can actually do like similar things like with love that are used currently, like, scarcity and urgency and these kinds of triggers. But the headline was, do you know the most important word in business? And so you come to a page and you're like, do you know the most important word in business? And you're like, oh God, well, okay. So you click play on the video and it's like, hey, do you know the most important word in business? Well, I spent 6 months teaching a group of entrepreneurs this word. Now they're doing very, very well for themselves. Now, if you're trying to guess the word isn't freedom. It isn't persistence. It isn't desire. It isn't hustle. And it isn't any like woo woo feel good word. It's actually very real, very practical, very concrete. Now, before I tell you what the word is, let me show you how three of the most respected entrepreneurs in the world are using this word to blow up their businesses right now. Let's look at Tim Ferriss. Now, Tim wrote the 4-Hour Work Week, and what he said to do is he said you should start an information business. But if you actually look at Tim's profile, you'll see what he's actually doing with his money is investing in software companies, all because of this one word. Let's go look at Jason Fried, one of the most respected software entrepreneurs online. He used to start a design company, and then he left design and started a company called Basecamp, all because of this one word. Now let's go look at Mark Andreessen. This dude is a billionaire. He's an advisor to companies like Facebook. He's the guy who started Netscape. And he started a venture capital company to invest in software, all because of this one word. Have you figured out the word yet? So now everything I've done there can be modeled and swiped for any industry. So what you do is, do you know the most important word? You could
Dylan,
say,
do you know? Do you know, Dylan?
I'm over here thinking revenue, but no, love,
revenue.
love,
What's the word, Dylan?
love, man.
Love. I mean, yeah, sort of. So like, but so you say, do you know the most important word? You can say, do you know the most dangerous word? Do you know the most significant word? Do you know the most risky word? Do you know the most like overused word? Like you can take this in many different directions. But then when you come in, you wrap as a copywriter, you build tension with love. Like you're like, because if I just gave the word right away, oh, the most important word. By the way, the most important word is predictability. predicting revenue, predicting profit, predicting product success before you build it, predicting your hires, prediction, being able to predict. And because if you could predict a product success before you start, then then you can. It's a very, very powerful word. And software is one of the most predictable sources of revenue online, and that's why all these entrepreneurs are moving to software. Then I sold a software course, and so, but if you look at it, so you say, do the most important word. I spent 6 months teaching people this word. And if you're trying to guess the word, it's not this. And then, by the way, let's look at how really respected people are treating this word, whether they know it or not. And then I give the word. That's it's classic. It's classic copy.
I remember this video. Yeah, I was like, "What's the word? What's the word?" And it did. I remember. Gosh, this is back in the day, but that definitely got like shared quite a bit. And you guys spent time on it too.
Oh yeah, that's not an accident. That wasn't just like, oh, poof, here it is.
This episode is brought to you by Funnel Dash's Ad Card, the only charge card exclusively for your digital ad spend. And if you're an ad agency that manages 7 or even 8 figures a year in media and ad spend for your clients, and you're looking to double your profits over the next 6 to 12 months, then check out Ad Card. See, the typical agency model is this. You charge 10% of your spend, and you make 10 to 20% margin at the end of the day. So that's really 1 to 2% of your client's spend that is profit in your business. The easiest way to double that is to really find a way to earn in that 1 to 2% cash back of the card that is on file of your client's ad account. And before Ad Card, what you had to do was invoice all your clients for their ad spend up front, which is really difficult on a cash flow basis and very difficult ask. And then you had to put the card on your own Amex or whatever card of choice to get that level of value back into your business. With Ad Card, it's entirely different and streamlined. You simply get your clients on Ad Card and make yourself the agency of record, and you'll get the cash back as long as you're managing the ad spend. It's a great way to double your profit without doing any additional work. Check it out at funneldash.com. So let's talk about Poor Ad, man. Like, what should we I'll not do? Like, flip the script here, Dan. Of like, all right, you just gave us like literally a template, a swipe file for an ad. That's awesome. Talk to us about something that would for sure tank.
Well, I think the context is what creates poor ads, not the actual ad itself. Like, it's a combination, right? You got the medium, you got the market, you got the messaging, right? So, like the medium is Facebook or YouTube or Snapchat or direct mail. The market is this, and then the message is this. And if you get all 3 of those right, researched, it's pretty difficult to screw up. But most people don't do the work for those 3 things, myself included. Sometimes I'll just be like, I don't want to do this. And so I write an ad and I'll lose money. And the vast majority of the ads that I've run, they all worked, all of them. Because I'm the biggest badass. I got a name as cool as Dylan Carpenter. Dylan Carpenter, and I just built this house with my bare hands.
And not a scratch,
Not a scratch. No, poor ads are like so embarrassing. I block them out of my mind. They're usually just kind of vague and confusing. You mentioned I tried in terms of like a campaign, I tried running a free plus shipping campaign for my book, and I stopped it immediately because I didn't like it. And intuitively, I just was like, this isn't gonna work. You get free book. Oh, it's not. It's $10. And then oh, buy this upgrade. Oh, this upgrade. Oh, this upgrade. And I was like, I'm gonna try it. So I had 120 people buy the book, and maybe 15 people take the upsells because there's no trust. And the upsells were targeted. They were really good. It's like, hey, start from zero, buy this book. Hey, watch 8 entrepreneurs get their very first sales online. Super killer. And the next one is yo, take it to the next level to start a business and scale it to 1 sale a day. Yo, the next one is get your handheld for a year implementing the book. Fucking I was just like, yeah, I hate
That sucks.
it. It
Man,
sucks. Like every hour that I spend investing in information marketing, whatever that word is, it sucks.
Yeah.
Every hour I spend investing in SaaS, it's like angels sing from the heavens. And like, what's Russell Brunson doing? What Laura Roeder started doing? What did Clay Collins do with lead pages? What did all like some of the best marketers in the world? They all start building SaaS because some of the best marketers in the world are like 10 out of 10 skill, but they're working in 2 out of 10 opportunities. And so, like you want to match 10 out of 10 skill with 10 out of 10 opportunity. And like, I just can't, I've tried memberships, information, ad revenue sites, and like software is the greatest satisfaction. We're just releasing a new software. And that's why I was actually late to this, is because we were onboarding our first user. And I was so engrossed in all the feedback, but like they're signing up, when I show up to the call and I'm like, oh God, are they going to like me? I'm scared. Are they going to think I'm greedy because I'm trying to sell them a software product? And they get on and they're like, dude, we're so excited about this. Thank you so much, man. We're like, oh, can you tell me what has you so excited? They're like, well, content management's just a pain in the ass. We hate it. And we're so excited for how your product's going to help us solve this problem. And I was like, dude, this feels so good. Like, feels significant right now. This is amazing. And I'm not trying to convince someone to read a book, and like implement a book. So like,
Yeah.
there were just all these factors in the free plus shipping that made me hate it. The worst was that I had no control over who the shipper was. They seemed lazy. I don't know if they ship books very often. So like I went off Amazon, and then I looked at my data and I saw that like I've had like maybe 7,000 people buy the book, and I've had like 5,000 people visit the book bonus URL. And I was like, that's a crazy amount of people that visit the book bonus URL. I just need to get the book in people's hands, not make them wait 2 weeks for a book after they just went through an upsell hammering sequence.
That's so funny, dude. So here, I want to. All right, this is too painful, man. We gotta change topics. Thinking about all the money I've lost on bed funnels. So I want to talk about how Dane looks at some of your guiding principles for managing your finances. One of the things that I've noticed from afar is how um, cautious, strategic, patient you are before you are considering getting into the business, right? Like I've seen a lot of your posts on Facebook or emails where you're just kind of putting out feelers about like different products, right? Whether it's like an analytics product or a video product or like this and this. And you are completely disciplined in the sense that like this is ID, throw it out. And if there is not like the single like smallest like iota of interest, then you'll you'll just move on, right? Or I should flip that script. If there's not an overwhelming amount of interest, that it makes it just as obvious, right? And you've got a couple existing successful products in market, and you have this you got start from zero going on, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs including myself that are just have this angst of like, I have to get this thing figured out. And it's very obvious that you're like patient and you surrender and you're not forcing it, you're not like trying to buy your way into it. But like how do you think about and don't I just say, like, I don't say like pre-selling here. Like, don't let's not go down that rabbit hole. I'm just gonna cut you off there because I feel like there's more behind like the how you think about that.
That's good, because I wasn't even thinking that word.
Okay, good. Like if I hear another marketer tell me I should pre-sell something. Okay, go ahead.
Do we have a hard stop? Because we can go for a bit if we don't.
Yeah, let's roll. Let's roll.
I'm happy to have the space. So to understand the question is how you asked about finances, but then you talked about the discipline with safely launching things, so I don't lose my ass financially.
That's where I want to take the conversation, but like,
how do not lose your ass financially? So if we look at the definition of the word compulsion, right? Like I'm mentoring a student right now, and she gets on the call, talk to business owners, and they start talking about problems, and then she can't listen because all she wants to do is solve their problems. And so she can't listen. She can't hear what they want. She can't hear what they want. She can't build what they want. She can't get anywhere. That compulsion is literally the linchpin seed of her lack of success with what she's trying to do. Success being defined by me, of course, like is different than others, but I define success as a way of thinking that unencumbers you towards your own dream. Success is a way of thinking that unencumbers you on the way to your own dream. So you watch someone say, I really want this, and then you watch them just paralyze themselves towards it. So success isn't like this outcome of a car and this and that. Success is a way of thought, a way of thinking that unencumbers yourself to your own dream. So if we look at the word compulsion, I gave her the language. I was like, next time you want to do that, just realize that you have an unconscious compulsion to help people. You have an unconscious compulsion to butt in and help people, which a lot of us do. So she takes a breath and she whispers that language. I have an unconscious compulsion to help people. And she just kind of like, oh, there's a lot of it. There's an engine behind that. And she keeps labeling it and noticing it. And then it starts to dissipate and then she can listen. Same with the unconscious compulsion for success, especially for men. So if we have an unconscious compulsion for success, or like me, I have an unconscious compulsion, or I've had an unconscious compulsion with like feeling significant. So it's like I want to feel significant. So like if I'm not checking that, then I will overgrandize a product that doesn't actually have interest. And because I'm so blind to the facts because of usually because of compulsion. So the first thing I would ask you to look at as a business owner, as an agency owner, is like, where are your compulsions the strongest? And your compulsions are the strongest where like you really don't want to be doing something that you're doing, or the slightest thing that you're being blindsided. So in terms of like launching this is pretty trippy. Like Zach, can you feel internally like the desire you have for success?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So instead of actually acting on that desire, if you can actually sit with love and just feel the desire without moving, you'll notice, and everybody on the podcast, like see if you can't feel the desire to be successful instead of being blindly forced forward by it. And when you start to feel the desire for success without moving, you start to notice like you might start to get more agitated, your body might start to get hot. And if you can stay there, that's like spiritual warrior stuff. And you stay there as long, you might feel like your brain's going to get ripped out of your head. Like you might feel like for real. Like, and so, and you stay there and you hold it. And then all of a sudden it'll kind of turn into a cool wave. And you're like, God, I think I just kind of want to do cool shit. But it's not I've got to do cool shit. It's, I kind of want to do cool shit. And then it's really centered. And so now we're compulsion free. And so being compulsion free, now we go out in the markets and we just little tap. We pour the water from the top of the valley and we're tapping and we're looking over here. We're like, oh, you know what, people? What's like an example? So like I had an idea for like a realtor review website back in the days. Like it's a portfolio of reviews for realtors. Before like Google reviews and Trulia and Zillow were all doing reviews, I was the genius guy thought of this review system back in 2006. And so I was at the top of the valley and I was looking over here at reviews and I had a design made for it. Made like, I had the whole design. I showed it to realtors and they're like, no, we don't care about that. And I was like, whatever, realtors, you don't know anything. And I was like, okay, well, what do you want? And they're like, I hate my contact database software. I'm like, oh, and the water was literally going off to the right as I was staring off to the left, and I pour the water and it's going contact database software. And so I actually ended up building that, and I failed at that one. That failed. And very quickly that failed because the top 10% of realtors run their agencies like a business. So they value content management software. The bottom 90%, when they say I hate content management software, what they're really saying is, I hate being a business owner. I hate having to grow up. I hate having to use systems. And I'm not going to use anything no matter how hard you try because I don't want systems. And so I didn't realize that, but the bottom 90% just didn't, they wanted the pizza in bed, and they hadn't made the decision yet to grow up and do a fully, a fully autonomous business owner, which has systems and discipline and responsibility. So anyway, the top 10%, they were fine with their contact database software. They were pretty fine with it. They like, so anyway, that's what I want people to know. That was something that you I couldn't really learn unless I did it. But I looked over here, Realtor Review website, no contact database, and I was like, okay, well, what do you want? Like, well, I just don't want to have to log in to my contact database. And I was like, well, that's okay, great. Well, let's just get you like well, what do you want? They're like, he's like, I just need to know the clients I'm working with so I don't forget about them and lose a deal. Okay, well, let's just get you an email that goes out every day and just shows you a list of all your clients, a little phone number, and a little note to remember them by. Would that be useful? Oh my God, yes, I would love that. Okay, great. So I get like 700 leads of people like, yes, I can't wait for this contact database software that's going to, I had a testimonial from one of the top agents. They're like, this thing's going to be great. And that was the testimonial. It's like, it was this landing page, and like I fucking split tested headline after headline, dead simple contact database software. So I did the contact database software you don't have to log into, and I had all this cost per lead and cost per click and cost per conversation. I had 15 customers that paid for it. I had an agent say, I saved a $4,000 deal from using Client Lunchbox, Dane. And I'm like, well, that's great. You want to sign up for an account? No. I hate this.
Here's what I've witnessed in my own career, right? I was at 2 software companies before Funnel Dash, and I'm still a victim of this today. There was one that was incredibly over bloated with features, and many of which 2 years down the line was like, oh yeah, we spent $300,000 building that feature and 5 people use it. And but so and so influencer wanted it, so we built it, right? And then I think another company that was, I think, just much more minimalistic in the sense that like their feature set was very minimal for a long time, and still was, and they scaled to multiple 8 figures, right? So we're a little bit off topic about ads, but as we're talking about finances, like us as marketers, it's very easy to get sloppy, and bundling is the answer to like all crappy offers, and you just start like bundling. This comes out of, I think, of the info space, and it's a fast way to like kill your profit margins, where you're just like, oh, I'm assuming that all my clients like want all of these things.
Well, can I say something to this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to like proliferate this as far and wide as possible, but I think the most profitable word in business is intimacy. And like, if you're thinking about how to create a killer offer, you just freaking ask your customer, dude, what would be a killer offer that you couldn't say no to? And you'll have it. You'll have it clear as day. You ask, what would be a super good win for you here? Like, what would, one of my favorite ways to do it is, what's the price that would be so low that you'd question the value of my service? What's the price that'd be so high that it'd be out of reach for you? And what price would be right in the sweet spot where it would just fit perfectly? And then you just kind of strip emotion out of it, but you're intimate with someone and you ask them these 3 questions. And you start to get a sense of what would be winning. But in terms of financial, like you asked about finances and how to like be patient. The rule of thumb there is, do not be driven by compulsion. Watch compulsion like a hawk. Because if you watch compulsion, then you'll come back to the point where you really just want to love someone, serve someone, do something great, because it just feels good to do that. That's how you stay financially safe. And then on the other front is you financially structure a business so it's profitable very quickly. And like that's a high intention. That's a high intention. You're not like, I'll be profitable 6 months later. It's like, how do I structure the deal so it's profitable right now? So, I build a SaaS business and I give equity away to a developer in exchange for future profit. and like I'll cover his base expenses. So I build a product, myagentbase.com. It's a mildly successful software product. It's like an extra 20 or 30 grand a year. Just runs fully automated. And it's one of those side projects. I gave him 40% of the profit. And then I covered his base living expenses so he could work full time on it. And then those base living expenses would come out of the future profits. Like I structured that, and I remember telling that to a CEO. I was like, God, how do you do this stuff? And it's like, well, if you have an intention of profitability, and it's not out of ego, it's like out of like really, it's out of keeping things safe. If every deal you structure and set up pays for itself, customers fund the development. That doesn't even have to be pre-selling. I never did pre-selling, and I don't think I've ever done pre-selling. And if people said yes to buy it before, that's all I usually needed. My form of pre-selling was my first customer funds the development and they get it free for life. That's how I used to do my projects. So I would do that just about everywhere I could. But the question to ask is, how do I reduce the risk of this project? And we don't ask that because usually we're driven by compulsion, or we're like too ashamed to ask for help, or these kinds of things. So what you're looking for is there's like three different buckets, say, of an idea. And if we compare it to like a balloon, like you blow up a balloon and then it just deflates right away. And that's most business ideas are there. And that's just because like it's hard. So, but that's what most people have for a business. They're blow up every day and then just out. So they show up again. And there's that one. There's other ones and it's got a tiny leak. So you come back, it's a little smaller, but you got to blow it up again. And then there's the ideas where you just go one breath and that balloon just goes up, floats off into the sky, and you don't have to work harder. And like if you look for ideas, that's what I'm doing. When you're like testing for feelers, I'm looking for the thing that I can usually just kind of go, and then it just kind of goes off on its own. That's what I was doing when I really, really wanted something to work. Now that I've kind of matured into a different evolution of entrepreneurship, now I'm looking at ideas that are towards really acute problems that exist, and I have the confidence now to confront those problems. So I see these problems that exist in the world as like forms of currents of energy, and I'll try and go step in the energy of that problem, and it just spits me out. And that, like, practically speaking, it's like someone tells you about a problem and you just can't handle it, so you don't want to listen anymore. Your energetic system isn't capable of handling that problem. So what I'm doing is I identify these problems, and then I bring really smart people into my corner to develop my self-image and allow me to handle that current of energy. So like that's kind of how I'm doing it now, is I'm surrendered, trying to be of like super, super strong service. And it's really all driven from love. I've got my own unconscious tendencies, but it's as much as I can love.
Dang, you're blowing my mind right now. I feel like this is definitely going to be one of those unique Rich Ed Poor Ed podcasts when people listen to it. They're like, well, this is different. But I love it, man.
It's a good quality of life. I work 3 hours a day.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, okay, so I feel like we'll definitely have you back on the show because we could dive into this stuff for like another hour. But for the sake of time, tell everybody a little bit about like what you got going on right now, how people can kind of dive into this further, how we can support you.
Well, I really love I love mentoring. It's really hard to admit that because it doesn't scale. Yeah. But I really like it a lot. So if I have that mentoring group, Starters. If you go to startfromzero.com and then you go to products, you'll see Starters, and we'll probably fill up to our 150 spots pretty fast. But if we do have spots and you'd like to just be around this sort of energy and you'd like to be around a group of entrepreneurs all living this way, it's pretty cool. We've got like a Discord chat room where gamers usually hang out, but we're using that instead of Slack. And so we'll go live in that little voice chat room quite often and just like say who needs help. And like people will share, and then we record those mentoring sessions and everyone can watch them later. And but Starters would be, if you want more of this energy, I can't emphasize I want to emphasize just how good life can be and how you don't have to be thinking from survival. Like your life doesn't have to be how to figure out how to survive all the time. And it's not that your life could even be about figuring out how to thrive. Your life could just be about true deep service, because you're not so concerned with survival. And then when we get there, we're like, God, why has America conditioned me to struggle? Why has America conditioned me to always have to be figuring things out? Why does America have to condition me to say I'm only worthy if I get attention? Why does America have to you just look at all these things we're conditioned to do. And you can kind of decondition back to your natural human state, which is to be of service. And then you start plugging that into systems for wealth, and then you go bonkers. So I would just say startfromzero.com, check out the book. I've got a podcast actually where I mentor people one-on-one live. And so they're like hot seats live that you can listen to. And I just released the 3rd season as well that has 4 or 5 people at a time per hour mentored. So I mentor 4 or 5 people at a time in about an hour. It's pretty nuts.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. I love it. What's the name of the podcast?
Start From Zero.
Oh, Start From Zero. Okay, good. Dane, thank you so much, man. This has been an amazing episode, and we've gone down a lot of different rabbit holes, but I very much appreciate you being able to go there, and encourage everybody to check out the podcast, check out Dane's book. Yeah, man, we'll definitely have you back on. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rich Dad Poor Dad podcast. If you're like me and listen to podcasts on the go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and richdadpoorhead.com/podcast. And if you absolutely love the show, go ahead and leave a review and a comment, share with a friend. If you do, take a copy, screenshot of it, email me, Zach@funneldash.com, show me you left a review, and I'll give you a free copy of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. To learn more about the book, go to richdadpoorhead.com. To leave a review, go to richdadpoorhead.com/review. Thanks again.